instant in chopping, spending the cash, yo, yeah. We have no pity on them, mercy for money, mercy for money. We get the cash, people they jolly some more, jolly some more. Auto is the who be banner the cash. Mr. Give a look to my beginning. Who be you, baddest? Big vibe, big chorus. Tony is and Lego bandits.
The roots of the issues that affect our marriages and families often lie in social nuances, mindsets, customs, and conventions, which can be further complicated by a lack of understanding of the legal implications of our actions and inactions within domestic relations. Join Chioma, ONYENUCHEYA-UKO every Thursday at 9 p.m. on the People's 105.5 FM Abuja for an intimate and insightful conversation in our family law talk show, Late Night Intercourse. Whether you're unwinding after a long day, snuggling up with your loved one, or reflecting on your choices and actions, this cozy fireside chat is the perfect opportunity to engage in enlightening social legal conversations that can help improve the quality of our choices and actions within the nucleus of society. Together, let's explore the legal and social issues that impact our marriages and families and gain a deeper understanding of how to navigate these complex relationships with empathy, wisdom, and legal awareness. Late Night Intercourse, only on the People's 105.5 FM Abuja. It's all about you.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of your family law talk show, Late Night Intercourse. As I had told you last week, for those of you who joined us live, it is a show intended to enlighten you, educate you on, legal implications of some of those family issues you have. What does the law say about those issues? What can you or cannot do? What are the implications of your options, the choices you make, the actions you take, and some of your inactions? So, Late Night Intercourse is the opportunity for you to get legal awareness and, of course, some social, appraisal of the implications of those issues. Your host, as always, is Chioma ONYENUCHEYA-UKO, the Zest family lawyer. And as always, I am excited to be with you tonight. So what are we discussing tonight? Tonight we're discussing a question. Who commands the right of occupancy in a home? Or put differently, whose right is it? Who has the prerogative? Who has the authority to determine who lives in the home or who doesn't live in the home? Who is sent out of the home or who is not sent out of the home? Because, of course, one of the basic needs of a human being is the need for accommodation, the need for a home, the need for shelter. And because of the need for shelter, it means that people live in homes, whether as individuals or as families. And since our conversations will always appraise family relations, family dynamics, we are looking at who commands that right. Whose responsibility is it? Whose right is it? Who can determine who lives in the home or not? For you to join this conversation, yes, if you're tuned in to People's 105.5 FM, the station that's all about you, you're very welcome. I'm happy you're tuned in. And for those of you who have joined us on any of our social media handles, we're more than excited to have you join us. If you want to contribute to the conversation, if you want to make a call, ask a question, or make a comment, you can reach us on our call number 090-80-000-633. I'll take the number again, The 090-80-000-633. That's the number to reach us on. But I would only take calls, have conversations with those that are discussing issues that are relevant to the topic we have tonight. So write into that question. Whose call is it? Whose command is it as to who lives in the home or not? Can you rightfully evict somebody from the home? Can you send your husband or your wife out of the house? Can you throw away your children from the home? Can you lock out that dependent who lives in your home? Do you have that right? Who has that right? What does the law say about it? That's what we're discussing tonight. And I think a good place to start for us to understand who has that right is to first of all look at a provision of the Nigerian Constitution. Under chapter 34, section 34 of the Nigerian Constitution, chapter 4, but section 34 of the Nigerian Constitution, the law says that every citizen of Nigeria, everybody has a right to the respect of the dignity of their person. Everybody, whether the person is male or female, adult or child, old or young, everybody has a right to the respect of the dignity of their human person. And that means that you cannot subject anybody to any degrading or inhuman treatment. So the question to ask yourself will be, will evicting somebody from a home translate to degrading treatment? Will it become inhuman treatment? If you lock out your husband, or lock out your wife, or throw out your daughter, or throw out your son, or throw out any of your dependents within the home, is it likely to occasion inhuman treatment against them? I'm sure you're a right-thinking person. So if the answer to that question is yes, it may be inhuman, it may be degrading, then it means that the law forbids you from doing that. It means that you cannot command that right as prescribed under the Nigerian Constitution. It means that throwing that person out of the home will mean an abuse of that person's fundamental human right. Of course, I imagine that this conversation is only for persons who are entitled to living in that home. I'm not talking about random strangers. I'm not talking about trespassers. I'm not talking about persons who do not have, lawful access or lawful stay in a home. No, those are not the persons I'm talking about. I'm talking about the members of a family, the members of a home, those who live in that home lawfully. The law forbids the eviction of the person from a home they occupy lawfully. So it means that the only person, and here not a human person, who can command or dictate the rights of persons to live in the home is the law, not necessarily the man or the woman. Some of the calls I receive, some of the complaints I hear will be issues about how a woman has been thrown out of her home, how a woman got home maybe late from work and she has been locked out, how a child has been thrown out because he or she, did or didn't do something their parents instructed them to or forbid them from doing, things like that. The law forbids it. And I've just cited section 34 of the Nigerian Constitution that prohibits anything that occasions a disrespect to the dignity of any human being. And any action that, exposes that person to inhuman or degrading treatment becomes an abuse of their right to human dignity. And then I would like to quickly refer us to what is provided for under the Violence Against Persons Act. The Violence Against Persons Act is a law that makes provision to protect you and I, everybody, male or female, old or young, from any violent or abusive action or inaction, including actions or inactions that happen within the home, within domestic circles. So what it means is that if anything is likely to threaten or offend or disrespect a person's right to protection, that thing is likely to be an abuse or a violence, and it is roundly prohibited by the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. And Section 9 of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act prohibits the forceful eviction of a spouse from a home. It prohibits the forceful eviction of a spouse from a home. It does not matter the kind of marriage you have. It does not matter whether it is a statutory marriage or a customary marriage. It does not matter, so long as that person is your husband or your wife. Whether that person contributed to the building of that home or not. Whether that person the house was already built long before the marriage, and then because you built the house by yourself before the marriage, you think you have a unilateral call as to who will stay in the house or not. Or because you are the head of the home and you are the man, you believe that means that automatically you can send anybody out of that house or allow them at your pleasure. Not quite, sir. The law does not say that. Section 9 of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, and by the way, the act has its variations as passed by the different states of the Federation, because the VAP Act is only operational in the FCT, but we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition laws as passed by the different states of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and they have similar provisions. So Section 9 of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act prohibits the eviction of a spouse from a matrimonial home. So it means that if your wife offends you, if your husband offends you, it does not matter if they contributed to the building of that house or not. You cannot evict them from the house. You cannot command, their occupation of the home or not. They are being resident in that house or not. Unless you take your matter to court and the court orders their eviction. If the court does not order it, by virtue of being married, by virtue of being your spouse, you lack the powers to arbitrarily send them out of the house. You can't lock them out. Because when you do that, as I had informed us earlier, you're already offending the provision of the Constitution. You are exposing them to inhuman treatment. You are exposing them to degrading treatment. And more specifically, you're offending the provision of the VAP Act, Section 9. And of course, there are penalties. And it's not just restricted to the person who actually throws the other out. It includes even persons who supported, aided and abetted, who covered for them, persons who contributed in any way. You are at the risk of running foul of the law if you participate in any such ill treatment. The law says that anybody who does that, it can be liable to 2 years imprisonment or a fine, or even both. So that tells you that it's not just a domestic affair. It's not just a civil matter. It can be a criminal matter. So it is not at anybody's pleasure to command, to demand, to control who lives in the home or not. Once that person lives in that home lawfully, it means that you cannot send him or her out of the home. And I just read the provision of the VAP Act that prohibits the eviction of a spouse from a matrimonial home. The VAP Act says you cannot do that. And I told you that it is not restricted to just the person who actually threw the other out. It extends to persons who participated. So for those of you who are the, what do I call you now? The response unit or whatever for your families, and then your brother and the wife is quarreling, or maybe your friend and the husband is quarreling, and you think that the best thing you can do in that circumstance will be to quickly come to their aid, quote and unquote now, by going to throw them out of the home. You will be running foul of the law. the law forbids it. And the other thing I'd like for us to look at is the provision of the VAP Act that also prohibits, the isolation of persons from family and friends. When you throw out somebody from the home, when a person is evicted from the home, of course, one of the immediate consequences is that that person is isolated from the family. That person is isolated from their children. That person is isolated from their spouse. That person is isolated from other dependents in the home, family members, whether, immediate or extended. And that isolation of anybody from their family or their friends, for the purposes of this conversation, we will be concerning ourselves from isolation from family. When you evict a person from the home, it invariably means that you are isolating that person from other members of that family who live within the home. And the VAP Act prohibits that in Section 13. The VAP Act says it is a crime, it is criminal, it is an offense, it is violence, it is abuse for you to isolate a person from their family. So you see that sometimes one action can expose you to layers of criminal liability. One action can expose you to multiple, charges. By that action of eviction, you're already running foul of the provisions of the Constitution, which can cause a civil action against you. You're already running foul of 2 sections of the VAP Act, which I've mentioned here, both of which are criminal offenses. Because where that isolation of family or friend happens, the law says that the person can be liable to, a prison term, of up to about 6 months. And that person can also be liable to a fine. The court can decide to either, cite the person for imprisonment for up to 6 months, or a fine, or both. So it's not a trivial matter. It's not just a civil offense. It's not. So I think that one of the problems we have is that we are not quite aware of the implications of some of the, actions we take, some of the choices we make. We are not quite aware. We just think that some of these things are they are domestic matters. It's just a family affair. It's just between husband and wife. No. There are laws regulating even family relations. And when you run foul of the law, it means that you bear the consequences. And some of the consequences are criminal liabilities, which means that that person can be liable for a prison term or the payment of a fine. So it's important to take note of this. The essence of the late night intercourse is to enlighten you on the legal implications of the choices you make within your family relations, so that you are aware that action A can result to consequence B. If you're not aware, unfortunately, the law does not permit ignorance of the law as an excuse. It is not one of the defenses you can cite in court. You can't go to court and tell the court, "Oh, sorry, my lord, I did not know." That cannot exonerate you. So that is why you should never miss any episode of Late Night Intercourse that comes to you live on People's 105.5 FM Abuja every Thursday at 9 p.m. And then let's look at what the Child's Right Act says. Because of course, children are part of the family. They are part of residence in a home. And the provisions of the Constitution, like I cited earlier, also inures to our children. It is a right. It is their right. It means that though they are your child, though that person is a child, the law says that child is also entitled to the respect of the dignity of their human person. There is no such thing as a small human being. All human beings are equal before the law, particularly for the purposes of their dignity. So, though it is a child, the Constitution and the Child's Right Act forbids you from doing anything that disrespects, that degrades the dignity of a child. So it means that you can't just throw your child out of the house because he or she did something you don't like. No, the law forbids it. Of course, the law does not forbid you from, cautioning a child, disciplining a child, chastisement and the rest of it. No, the law does not do that. But there are parameters that are deemed reasonable and lawful. It must not exceed the bounds of reasonability. But that is not to say that when that child has gotten to the age of maturity where they can fend for themselves, that they can enforce their continued stay in your home. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to persons who are children living in your home. You cannot evict them. It is unlawful. The Child's Right Act forbids it. And then let us read the provision of Section 8 of the Child's Right Act. Says that every child is entitled to their privacy, family life, home. Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to read the rest of it. It means that your child is entitled to a home. It does not matter whether you and the mother are in talking terms or not. It does not matter whether you love your husband or not. It does not matter whether your in-laws have treated you well or not. Your obligation to your child is sacrosanct and cannot be negotiated on the basis of the relationship you have with their other parent or with a third party. So you cannot evict a child from the home. It is not your right to command the occupation of the home. So that right of occupancy in a home is their due, is their entitlement. In fact, it is an inalienable entitlement. Under no circumstance can you throw them out of that home, except they are not your children. But if they're your children and they live in your home, you cannot evict them because the law says they are entitled to being in a home. If you're just joining us, you are tuned into the People's 105.5 FM Abuja, and we are discussing who has the command of the right of occupancy in a home. And this is your weekly family law talk show, Late Night Intercourse. For those of you who didn't hear me call out our 80-000-633. We will be taking a short break, and upon our return, you may be welcome to make your calls and make your contributions. Please stay with us. So it's your weekly family law talk show, Late Night Intercourse, with Chioma ONYENUCHEYA-UKO, also known as the Zest Family Lawyer. And as you already know, we are discussing the question, who commands the right of occupancy in a home? At whose behest? Who has the authority to determine who resides in the home or not? Who has that authority? And we've been looking at what the law says, of course, citing provisions such as we have in the Constitution and then in the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. And I was just talking about the provision of the Child's Right Act that is specific to your children. And we had discussed Section 8, which says that every child is entitled to a home. And whose responsibility is it to make that provision? Of course, that primary responsibility is that of the parents, and in their absence, other caregivers, and in some instances, government. But so long as parents have their children living in the home, so long as parents have a home and have the means, they cannot evict their children from the home, except as provided by law when those children are in conflict with the law. For those of you who may want to call in and contribute, you may feel free to call us on 091 12 22 1055. I'll take it again, 0911 222 1055. Or you may call us on 090 80 000-633. You may also feel free to send us WhatsApp messages on either of these numbers to ask your questions or make your contributions. For calls, we will only take calls on either of these lines when we're live on the show. Otherwise, you may send your WhatsApp messages for whenever, and as long as we can, we will respond to them. So, proceeding on the further provisions of the Child's Right Act, I will be referring you to Section 11 that speaks on the rights of a child to the dignity of his person. I had earlier mentioned to you that these are provisions that are made under the Nigerian Constitution and then extends to also the Child's Right Act. So that is to say that it is not negotiable whether male or female, old or young, adult or child, everybody is entitled to the respect of the dignity of the human person. Offending that right is a civil offense against that person. Then, under Section 16 of the Section 14 of the Child's Right Act, every child is also entitled to parental care, maintenance. And what is parental care outside the home? What is parental care outside the home? When a child is evicted from the home, how can that child adequately, satisfactorily enjoy parental care? It follows without a doubt that a child that's been evicted from a home cannot adequately enjoy parental care. So it means that the eviction of a child from a home will automatically occasion an offense against Section 14 of the Child's Right Act. So it then means that it is not within anybody's rights or liberty or privileges or discretion to evict, just randomly evict a member of the family, including children. So for those of you who didn't join us earlier, if you're just joining us, I would like to quickly do a recap of what we've been discussing. We've been discussing who commands the right of occupancy within a home. And in answering that question, I had made it abundantly clear that it is not at the prerogative or discretion of the father or the mother or anybody who thinks that he or she, built the house or built the home or owns it to arbitrarily evict any member of the family. The law forbids it. The Constitution forbids it because the Constitution forbids anything that violates the dignity of a person, anything that degrades or dehumanizes any person. The law forbids it. And of course, eviction from the home is likely to occasion, a disrespect to the dignity of a person. And then we went further to refer to the provisions of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, and I had said to us that the VAP Act is operational only in the FCT, but thankfully we have its variations as passed by the different states of the Federation, and by the VAP laws of the different states, similar provisions also exist. It then means that you cannot do anything that offends or abuses a person. The law forbids it. It will be a violation of their rights, and it also exposes you to criminal liability. And in the case of evicting a spouse from a home, the law says that you can be liable to 2 years imprisonment or a fine, or both an imprisonment, a term of imprisonment, and also a fine. That's the provision of the law under the VAP Act. And the VAP Act also prohibits anything that will isolate a person from family. So when you evict a person from the home such that it violates their access, such that it isolates them from other family members who are living in the home, you have also offended the law. You have offended the provisions of the VAP Act. And such a violation may expose you to up to 6 months imprisonment and a fine or a fine. So it is not just a civil matter. In fact, you can be doubly exposed to the extent that civil actions can be prosecuted against you, and also a criminal charge. And then I've referred us to the provisions of the Child's Right Act, where I said that the law forbids anything that abuses the dignity of a child. And the law commands that a child is entitled to a home. Of course, it's not up to that child to, provide that home. So it means that you cannot evict a child from a home. It is a child's entitlement to enjoy that provision. And furthermore, the law also commands that a child is entitled to parental care, protection, and maintenance. And of course, the provision of shelter is one of such. It is a fundamental right of a human being. It's one of those basic needs of a human being, including a child. So by these legal provisions I have exposed you to this evening, I hope you are well convinced and you clearly understand that nobody commands the right of occupancy in a home except the law. So any such command, any such authority must be in compliance with the law. It cannot be arbitrary. It's not something you just do randomly and decide, I want this person to stay in the home, or I don't like how she behaved, she spoke back at me, I didn't like it. The law forbids that. Once again, for those who may want to send us a message or call us, feel free to do that on our number. The station number is 0911 222 1055, or you may call us on 090 80 633. You may also send WhatsApp messages to either of this line, and we'll be happy to respond to your question or take your comments, whatever they may be, so long as they are relevant to the conversation topic tonight. So I don't know what those questions may be. I don't know what we haven't gotten a call, but I guess you're just enjoying the session and enjoying the learning. We want to see families thrive. We want to see you, we want to see your family grow in peace and in harmony. Because when the family is harmonious, when the family is doing well, the society does well. because it is the family that feeds the society. So the essence of Late Night Intercourse, your weekly family law talk show, is to help our families thrive, to help our marriages thrive, such that we have a wholesome society that is enjoyable for you and I. Because when you thrive, when your family thrives, when your marriages thrive, we all thrive. We have a caller. Let's see. Hello. Hello. Hello, good evening. Hello. Multiple calls. I don't know why they're not connecting. Hello, good evening. Oh my goodness. I can't, I'm unable to keep them. I don't know, it's not connecting. And the calls were coming up in multiples.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Okay. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you.
I can't hear anything. I can't hear anything at all.
Hello?
Hello.
I'm hearing you.
Oh, my apologies. I can hear you now. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah. I have
Sorry, your voice is faint. It's very faint, I can't hear. You're who? Sorry, I can't hear. I can't hear. Can we use the speaker? Is there a way we can use the speaker? Because I can't hear. My apologies. Hello?
Hello?
Aha. Yes. You were saying?
Yeah, my name is Joshua.
Okay, Joshua. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Have a question or a contribution?
I have a question. I'm calling out the way from Guagua.
From Guagua?
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome on the show.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
A situation, two partners have an issue, and the mother and the father are not studying well. The value of them that the children want to fully have rights to demand for the custody of the children.
Sorry, a situation where if a couple has an issue and what happened?
Maybe they quarrel
Okay.
and demand for the custody of the children. Do I have the right?
Okay, the parents of the wife takes the custody of the children. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello?
I'm hearing you.
Okay, you're asking where a couple has a problem and then
Yeah.
the parents of the woman intervenes and then
No,
takes...
the parents, sorry, you didn't get it. The parents of the man
Okay.
demand the custody of the children.
Demand custody of the children.
Yeah.
Okay, whether they are right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I would have preferred that you asked a question that is relevant to the topic we're discussing tonight. I would have preferred that. But since we've already taken your call, I will oblige you a response.
Okay.
They do not have a right to unilaterally take custody of the children, except the couple are willing to oblige them that custody for reasons, for certain reasons. the only way anybody can have custody of a child, except the birth parents or the lawful parents of the children, will be by a court order. So where they think that for some reason maybe the father of the children or the mother of the children or both of them are unable to adequately take care of the children, if they approach the court in the best interest of the child, in considering the best interest of the children, the court can grant a third party custody of those children. But until a court order is obtained, nobody has a right to arbitrarily demand or take custody of a child when the child's parents are willing and able to take care of those children. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, definitely.
All right.
Get me right now.
Sorry?
Get me right now. Maybe the parents have an issue, the wife and the husband are not important. The husband built a house, because of the parents of the woman, the husband has to escape for his life keeping and beat the woman.
Honestly, it's quite a strain for me to hear you. I don't know if I should keep repeating what you're saying. What I responded to was what I thought you said, but it appears you're saying I didn't quite hear what you said, and I'm not hearing you better, even now that you're repeating yourself.
Okay, I will find out a time to come and repeat and speak one-on-one with you.
No, not a problem. All right, thank you for calling.
Thank you and God bless you.
God bless you too.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we'll have to improve our audio quality for the calls because it was difficult hearing him. I do not know if the rest of our listeners were able to hear the question so that they can follow the response. So for those who didn't hear us earlier, our call number is 090-80-000-633 or 0911-112-1055. You may also send WhatsApp messages to either of those numbers or call, whatever your preference is. Do you have a question? Do you have a comment? Then you can also send us an email if you would rather on via our email address latenightintercourse@gmail.com, or you can drop a comment on any of our social media handles and we'll be happy to respond to your questions. Thank you very much for joining us on tonight's episode of Late Night Intercourse with Chioma ONYENUCHEYA-UKO, also known as the Zest Family Lawyer. And it is our delight to bring you fresh episodes of conversations around issues that affect the family, marriages, and such relationships. Keep a date with us same time next week as we bring you another episode. For tonight, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much and do enjoy a restful night. Bye-bye.